Adult animated movies have always been a rare case, and who can really blame them? With the cost of production and the amount of resources that go into it, it seemed like quite the risk. Well, unless you're anime. I mean, just take a look at the highest grossing adult animated movies on Wikipedia. Out of the top 10, 7 of them are anime, with The Simpsons taking the top spot. Coupled with the fact that there's tons of people out there who still see animation as a medium for children's entertainment, it's an uphill battle. So a lot of adult animated movies come out with next to no hype. Sometimes it's deserved. And that was the case with the 2017 dark sci-fi animated movie Muthafukaz, stylized as MFKZ. There's quite a few things to unpack with this movie. For starters, this movie is a French-Japanese co-production between two studios. The French studio, Ankama Animations, who were behind Wakfu, and the Japanese studio, Studio 4C, who were behind movies like The Flashpoint Paradox and the 2011 Thundercats reboot. So clearly the production team had experience behind them. And it really shows. The movie has a really unique style to it, which is its most standout feature. The art has a very gritty and gangster style to it, nailing the rundown and crime-filled environment the movie is set in. You can almost feel how hot and stuffy the air feels there and how much of an awful place to live in it is. It feels very GTA San Andreas to me. And the character designs create good contrast with the gritty realism of the world. Characters are disproportionate and cartoony with stylized features to make them look kind of goofy, which I think helps them get away with a lot of the violence that goes on, because I think having them with realistic proportions would make it a bit too much. It's also thanks to that the main characters, these guys, get to fit right in while still feeling a tad bit out of place. To top it all off, the animation is really good. There was never a visually dull moment in the movie, from fast-paced movements and animation to dynamic camera movements that bump up the cool factor coupled with some really amazing framing. There really isn't any problem with the movie on a technical level, but that's where most of my praise ends. The movie is mostly style and very little substance, and you'll see why that is. This is Muthafukaz.
Battles and I'll take it to the street where there's no rules. Take off the gloves, rip please to down. Gotta prove my skills, so get down. My lyrical depths to roll, battle smack down now. Gotta shoot to kill and shoot to skill. Don't you be afraid, man's gotta do how it feels. 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, 10. I flip the script to make it to the top 10.
So, Muthafukaz is a movie based on a comic book series of the same name, set in the dystopian Dark Meat City, DMC for short. It's a city where crime is rampant and death is just around the corner. You could just get killed by looking at someone funny. This is the city where our main characters call home. This is Angelino, a literal black dude. Not metaphorically or anything like that, he's literally black. And every day in the city is a struggle to stay alive. But just before we get to him, the movie opens up with a woman on the run, and in her arms is a young Angelino. This is his mom. And just as she's about to get cornered, a black dog jumps in, murderizes the pursuers and gives her a chance to escape. And just as she runs, we cut to the present day. Angelino, now 22 years old, surviving in the shithole that is Dark Meat City. He's out making a pizza delivery, and while he's at this, he's narrating to us just how much of a shithole the city is, until he gets distracted by a lady. He sees her and is immediately smitten by her. But it's this brief moment of distraction, he fails to see what's heading his direction. It's Truck-kun, ready to claim another victim. Is this about to be an isekai? Unfortunately, no. Angelino survives, but at the cost of a really bad headache and getting fired. So he makes his way back home to his absolutely repulsive apartment. And this is why I love the art. It's able to show you just how rancid and run down his living space is. To make things even worse, the place is crawling with cockroaches. Cockroaches which Angelino calls his pets. Like he feeds them and all that. Ugh. This is where we get introduced to our second main character, Vince, a skeleton dude with a flaming skull. What is he and how is he not a fire hazard? Well, it's unclear, we're just expected to go with it. And the two are going through a rough spot as they are both unemployed, broke, with 2 months late on rent, so things aren't looking good for them. A solution they'll figure out tomorrow, so they sleep on it. This is where Angelino gets a really trippy dream. There really isn't any meaning behind it, it just looked good. And it does leave him with an even worse headache. And then we get introduced to the worst character in the movie, Willie. He's a weird dog thing that's really into conspiracy theories. He gets the gang to go out, and as they take the bus, this is when we get another Angelino monologue about how much the city sucks. I mean, we get it, but then he sees something that doesn't seem right. Some people have weird looking shadows that nobody else sees. His friends just chalk it up to him being crazy and go get something to eat. And it's in this restaurant they run into the same girl that Angelino got distracted by at the start of the movie, and he gets too flustered to approach her and leaves. I can relate. As they're out, Angelino notices that they are being followed by some shady men in black, and this leads to our first chase scene. It looks really good, and as they are trying to lose them, something awakens in Angelino. His heart begins to race and his reflexes are heightened, so he's able to take down one of them. He doesn't really question what he just did or how he did that, all he wants to do is get out of there. And the trio do. They take a moment to try and figure out who their pursuers are, but as they do, they see a shooting star and make a wish. Angelino's wish is just to be a somebody. They head back home for some pizza, TV, and a bit of downtime. But that is short-lived as a friggin' SWAT team bursts through their door to gun them down. There's lots of shooting and violence everywhere. And somehow Angelino and Vince manage to hold them off, with Angelino awakening again. This was a pretty sick scene, revealing to us that the person, or rather the people behind the helmet, look just like Angelino. So maybe this isn't just any normal kind of SWAT team. In a very out of left field moment, we cut to a bunch of luchadors in a locker room. They're going on about seeing divine signs that must mean something. Signs that allude to our main characters. Why are they seeing this? Okay, so get this. They are a bunch of secret guardians tasked with protecting the world, hailing from a long line of guardian luchadors since the Aztec Empire. They fight behind the scenes to protect humanity. They even beat up Hitler. Friggin' Hitler. Now that's something I'd sit down and watch. But since there aren't really any world-ending threats these days, they spend their time broadcasting luchador fights in order to stay in shape and make money to pay rent. Now that is just wild. Before we can even get back to our main characters, we're taken back to the past. The same woman from the start of the movie has been caught and she's not getting away this time. But she was able to hide the then baby Angelino in a dumpster somewhere where the dog from earlier finds him, and what he does with Angelino, it's unclear. Now back to the present. Now branded as wanted criminals, the duo are able to find somewhere to hide out in the very violent, gang-filled Palm Springs. Meanwhile, back in their apartment, their pet cockroaches swarm out in search for Angelino. Thank God cockroaches aren't this intelligent in real life, I think. It's not even up to a day that their hideout is already compromised. The men in black show up, but before they can do anything, the local gang pulls up, not liking these suits all up in their territory, and open fire. It doesn't take long before things break into a full-on shootout and they don't stand a chance. Gang violence saves the day, until one of the men in suits morphs into a grotesque tentacle monster and proceeds to murderize even more people. Angelino and Vince are able to get out and GTA an ice cream truck, with the men in black hot on their trail. And so begins the next chase scene. But just before that, there's this brief meta moment that breaks the fourth wall. That's basically asking, what the heck is going on, in a very sarcastic tone. I guess it's supposed to be humorous, but it really isn't. After one pretty fun chase scene, they're able to make it out alive once again. So where did they decide to go from here? Back to the DMC. You know, the place where they've been chased around in. They run into that mysterious girl again. Her name is Luna, and he asks her for help. But to nobody's surprise, the men in black show up again. Turns out she works for the bad guys, giving them their location, and now they finally get caught. Just to cut in real quick, if you're enjoying the video so far, consider leaving a like, and if you really like what I put out, maybe subscribe too, as it really helps the channel out, and will make you feel extra toasty. Alright, back to the video. Angelino wakes up in what is arguably the best set piece in the entire movie. There's so much detail on screen that overpowers Angelino, making him feel almost insignificant in the vast open space seemingly made to contain him and him alone. The whole area is devoid of color, muting any kind of life in there. And this is where we are introduced to the one behind it all, and he loads a bunch of exposition on us. He, as well as all those black hentai monsters, are beings born from dark matter. They're called the Machos. They're the ones secretly running the world from behind the scenes, getting their kind into all the high places to gain influence and steer the world towards their direction. What is that direction? Well, turns out they're the ones behind global warming and pushing big corporations to pump out more pollution to warm the earth and make it more habitable for them because they don't survive in the cold. And Angelino is part of them. Well, rather, half of him is. He's a hybrid and the Machos do not like that. They see his existence as an abomination and want him gone. But just before they do, they use Luna, who is also a hybrid by the way, to try and brainwash him into killing Vince and then himself. But as she's doing so, she peers into his memories and sees his past and sympathizes with him. Oh yeah, you remember those cockroaches? Well, they've somehow managed to track down Angelino to the secret macho base he's being held, with the luchadors following said trail too. Angelino is back with Vince, and he does try to kill Vince, but thanks to the power of friendship, he's able to fight back and they break out. Thanks to the luchador commotion, the two parties are able to meet up as well as bring along a professor who was held captive. Angelino passes out and has another dream. This time, it's him and the black dog. Turns out that was his dad. He gives a bit of pep talk before vanishing, and Angelino wakes up 3 days later. The super smart scientists along with the luchadors are building some kind of rocket that's supposed to shoot into the atmosphere and cool things down, creating an instant snowstorm to freeze the nachos to death. So you think Angelino would want to help out, right? Nope. He and Vince run away. His reason? Oh, we don't belong there. I mean, how are we supposed to save the world when we can't even save ourselves? Like, dude, are you serious? While I can see this as very in character for them, it just doesn't feel like it was a sound decision to make. And to add to this pile of stupid decisions, they're heading back to DMC. All because they need to go rescue Willie, the same person who, moments ago, were ranting on about how much of a piece of shit he is and how much more trouble than he's worth. Because, I guess, friendship prevails. With 30 minutes left in the movie, they need to have some kind of climax, so I guess that's why they have to go back. Back at Dark Meat City, riots have broken out and there's even more violence than usual. They get to Willie's house and another shootout breaks out. This one guy that's been chasing them since the start is going crazy popping heads and the local gangs are popping back. And he unceremoniously dies. Meanwhile, the rocket from earlier takes off into the atmosphere and it causes the temperature to drop. All the machos in disguise freeze over, and Angelino is one of them. Things aren't looking good until Luna shows up and kisses him, and I guess that gets his heart racing, helping him stay warm for a bit. But that moment is short-lived. The macho's top dog, the same guy who killed Angelino's mom, shows up to finally finish the job. They duke it out, but Angelino is having a hard time because he's also trying to keep the monster inside him at bay, holding on to his humanity. But he still doesn't stand a chance, and just as he's about to bite the bullet, the gang from earlier pulls up, this time with vengeance, and they riddle him with bullets. They totally over-murderize him. Yay, gang violence. They did it, everyone. They won. Gang violence has once again saved the day. But for real though, this just robbed Angelino of whatever W he could have had. It's pretty anticlimactic. And to add salt to injury, Luna just up and disappeared for no reason. She wasn't kidnapped or anything, she just dipped. Just like that. And Willie? Motherfucking Willie. While seeing his friends getting beat up, he chose to run and abandon them. He is the sole reason they came back to the city in the first place, but he just noped out of there. God, I hate him so much. And then the movie ends with a 2-month time skip. Everything is back to normal for Angelino and Vince. Rather, they are back to where they started, still in their run-down roach-filled apartment, but at least they have jobs now, so I guess things are a little bit better. Luna is still nowhere to be seen, or rather, looks like she's avoiding them. And Willie is now a musician doing his own thing, still keeping away from the duo. And that's it. The movie ends. Well, not before a shot of a secret moon base teasing us of a potential sequel. And that's Muthafukaz. There was a lot of potential in this movie. It had a lot of good things going for it. I mean, I really loved the concept, but the execution was lackluster. You can only wow me so much with dynamic camera work before the cracks start to show. I've seen people call it an underdog story, but frankly, I don't really see it. Our main characters begin as bottom of the barrel losers and end as slightly above bottom of the barrel losers, but this time with character development. You can argue that this is the first in a series that aims to expand the world and characters, but if that's the case, it doesn't do a good job doing that, as it fails to really get you invested in them. They do set up a few things like the whole moon base, which means that the stakes are only going to get higher, but I'm not convinced they could pull that off. Most times it just felt like the movie was in a rush to get to its next action or chase or shootout, which is at the cost of telling a cohesive story. Like for example, the whole ice cream chase scene was longer than it needed to be. And that sucks because you can see the pacing issues in moments where there isn't gunfire, which starts to bog down the whole experience. Like towards the end of the movie, to set up the climax, they show us a literal slideshow. At least the art looked good. Some scenes feel like there's supposed to be more to them, but they just end up falling flat, coupled with silence as the characters just stare at each other before a fade to black transition that feels like it was cutting the scene short. A part of me understands because this was an adaptation of a comic after all, so some things needed to be left out. Some plot points and characters were taken to save out time. But this movie isn't some adaptation of the first issue or something like that. Oh no, it's more like an abridged version of the entire story and then some. Which sucks, but I guess they were trying to use the film medium to bring a different spin to this series. All in all, Muthafukaz is a pretty okay viewing experience. It's a good way to pass time, but it's pretty forgettable after everything is done. It's not exactly bad, but it could have been better. But despite everything, I think people should still give it a watch for the spectacle alone. You'll definitely find some kind of entertainment from it. As always, I am your very favorite slice of bread. Stay toasty.